Welcome to today's lecture video on legal method. On our previous video, we considered everything that has to do with introduction to legal method, definition of legal method, the purpose of legal method as one of the first legal courses in the university. We also proceed to define law, and I also recommended another video which I told you to watch that defined everything you have to know about law with authority that you can use to answer your lecturer's question. Now on this lecture 2 on legal method, we are going to talk about something that is very special, which is what? Characteristics of a law. We stopped at law previously. Now we want to consider the characteristics of law, because if you are a legal method law student or you just got admission to study law in any university, it doesn't matter. One of the ways or one of the places you are going to be tested as far as your first semester exam is concerned is going to be on definition of law, purpose of law, and then characteristics of law. If you don't know the characteristics of a good law, you are going to make mistakes, because most of the past questions have shown that problem question will be drafted in order to test your understanding as per what makes up a good law, as per what gives rise to a law as a valid authority. So this is what we are going to do on this video. If you are new here, you can consider subscribing, because every single Saturday and Wednesday we post a legal video here, and when you do that and turn the notification, you will be receiving notification of any video that will be helpful to your journey. Let's begin. Number one characteristics of law is that law is organic and dynamic. When we say that law is organic and dynamic, what do we actually mean? It simply suggests that law is something that is changing with the change in the society. Law is something that should be growing with the growth of the society. Of course, there was a time an Igbo woman or a typical woman in Africa is not allowed to inherit his father's property or his late husband's property. But as it stands today, if you are in Nigeria watching this video, that law has been done away with in so many cases. The court in the case of Okeje and Okeje, Mojeku and Mojeku, has ruled that any tradition, be it Igbo, be it Hausa, be it Yoruba, that denies women the right to inherit their father's property or their late husband's property is repugnant to natural justice, equity, and good conscience. The implication of this is that as it stands today, if your father dies and you are a lady, you have the right to inherit your father's property. If your husband dies as a widow, you have the right to claim your husband's property. The point I'm trying to make is that a good characteristic of law is that law is dynamic. As the society is growing, the law is growing. So many laws that were operational within the realm of our forefathers, if you go to criminal code, many law has been repealed. Some has been deleted because they are no longer functional. Technology has come, a lot of things have changed. So many things that we are considered as a crime is no longer a crime, and some certain things that we are no longer anticipated as a crime has now become a crime. That is the one characteristic of law. Very dynamic, very changing in nature. And any law that is not dynamic or not subject to change will subject itself to atrophy. Atrophy simply means that it's going to be static, and by being static, it will not be able to cater for the development of the society. Thus, such law becomes invalid law, or becomes something that the society should, not only repeal but do away with. If your lecturer asks you a good characteristic of law, start by telling him that law is dynamic, law is subject to change, law is organic, law is moving, law is in motion. Then analyze it the way I analyze it. Cite this case of Mojeku and Mojeku. Use it the example I used. This is what we mean answering law question with authority. What I did now is I cited authority to tell you that law is dynamic. Do same and you see yourself cruising with A. So let's move to the second characteristics of a good law. Another characteristic of a good law is lifespan. By lifespan, it simply means the limit or the limitation to what years or time the law can survive. Ordinarily, when law is made, it is expected that the law ought to last for perpetuity. But then there are three conditions or three instances where law could actually serve its purpose and no longer becomes law. Number one, we talk about by express repealing it through another legislation. Number two, we talk about when the law has become spent or expired. Then number 3, we talk at when the law has served its purpose. And also we can also add another one as fourth element by saying when elapsing on a given date. So when we refer to lifespan as a characteristic of law, we are simply saying that ordinarily law should last for perpetuity, but there are times law could actually outspan or outlive its limitations. So by lifespan, we are simply saying that there could be a way law could come to an end, even though that law was in force before or was validly made. Just like example I gave you. For instance, during the COVID-19, of course, any person during the COVID-19, we all see that many laws were made. In fact, at some point, it becomes a crime to come out in the public places. It becomes a crime to go to church. It becomes a crime to, gather in the public places. These laws were against the constitution as at today. If you are to make that law as at today without any valid reason, you are going against the constitution, which guarantee right to freedom of movement, which guarantee right to freedom to which guarantee right to freedom of religion and consciousness, which guarantee right to freedom free from discriminations, which guarantee right to privacy. So, but all those laws were valid as of that time, simply because of what the country we are passing through. We are surviving COVID-19. We are passing through a pandemic that was very deadly. Then these laws were in place. The law that implements curfew, police can arrest you from coming at specific time or gathering at specific places for different occasions. You can be arrested and prosecuted as of that time. But those laws were no longer valid because of what? Lifespan. So you see how this serve as a characteristic. If law were made at a particular time, there can be a time or there will be a time when such law will become null and void because that law has served its purpose. The pandemic is over, the COVID-19 is over. So any law that restricts individuals' right to, freedom to move anyhow is against the constitution and become null and void. You can still use this explanation to give your lecturer when he asks you characteristics of law. Then we move to the next one. The next one simply has to do with what? Territorial scope. When we mean territorial scope, we simply mean that it is not law that is applicable at point A, is still applicable at point B. A good example is in our country, Nigeria. Here in Nigeria, it is not law that is binding in people in the northern part of the country as far as crime is concerned. That such law is also not binding in people in southern part of the country. We talk about the penal code operation there. We talk about the criminal code applicable in southern part of the country. These two laws have different positions, but they deal with criminal law or crimes. Adultery is a crime in the northern part of the country. Adultery is not a crime in southern part of the country. And the courts have illustrated this in the case of Auko against Fagbemi. So it suffices to say that it is not a law that is applicable in United Kingdom that is applicable in Nigeria. Remember, it is one word. Or let's even bring it down. It's not a law that is applicable in Kenya. It's the one applicable in Uganda or here in Nigeria. So you see how laws governs a particular set of community, set of a nation. That is what to me law is territorial in nature. Any law that binds everybody will lose its value as law. Yes, you may argue, what about the international laws or international conventions? I will tell you for a fact that by virtue of Section 12 of the Constitution, any law that is international in nature that has not been ratified or domesticated by our National Assembly is not yet to be binding on us. You will learn that in constitutional law. Now, we talk about another characteristic of a good law, which is what? Reasonableness. Law has to speak to reason. And this is where the theories of natural law stands tall. Because the natural law says that any law which is not reasonable is not law at all. And unjust law is not law at all. Lex injusta, non lex ex. So that's what the principle is saying, that if the law is not reasonable, if the law is not justifiable, if the law is not justiciable based on reasons, such law should be disobeyed. So we see this as a characteristic of law. There is not just enough to dish out law. Of course, we are no longer in banana republic. Neither are we in autocratic regime. For law to be binding, it must be scrutinized on the basis of democracy and freedom of rights. So any law that seems inimical, antithetical to natural justice, equity, and good conscience, such law is not law. That is a good characteristic of law. Cite these Latin maxims and use it and support your answers, and you see yourself closing in A. So basically, we move to another characteristics of a good law, which is inspirational. What we mean by inspirational is that law should be that which motivates the citizens to live their life. Law ordinarily should just have that nature to inspire obedience without even, laying emphasis on its punishment or sanctions. Let me just buttress what I mean. We all know that it is a crime to kill somebody. Of course, by virtue of Section 33 of the 1999 Constitution, it is illegal to take the right of anybody except as justified by law. When the courts have sentenced somebody to death, you can then take the life of that person if you are empowered to do so. But then, apart from that being a law, there is a divine mandate on us that killing is evil. So you see that the law that prohibits killing is not only just there because of the sanctions of, sentencing you to murder or sentencing you to death because you have killed another person, but because it inspires us to even serve God or serve whatever gods we believe in. No gods, no God accept killing as a criteria to serve him. Do you understand? So law should inspire obedience apart from the punishment. Law should have natural inclinations to inspire obedience. That is what we mean that law should be inspirational as a part of characteristics of a good law. Then we talk about dual nature of law as characteristics. By dual nature, we are simply saying that law is like a coin that has two sides. One side is there to punish, another side is there to protect. A good example boils down to Section 33 or right to life. Right to life grants everybody the privilege to live. But then if your own life becomes an animal or a lion within the realm of human, that you begins to kill another people, you begins to take life, begin to handle people, in this case, law will come to take your own life. Are you getting the point? So we say that law is there to protect, law is there to promote, law is there to safeguard the society. But there are times the law itself will take life, will punish, will sanction in order to maintain the sanctity of the good of others. Because in law, there is what we say, the well-being of the people is the primary purpose of law. That is what we say in law. So the well-being of everybody will always supersede an individual idiosyncrasies. If you are a person that begins to live like animal, a lion in the king of jungle, the law is going to take you out in order to give other people peace. That's why we have prisons, or what we call in today as correctional centers. If you become a rapist, they will take you there to lock you up. If you become, nuisance to the society, the law will take you out from the common society. If you become mad, the law will confine you so that you don't, affect others with your negligent act and so many other things. So that is what we mean by dual nature. As you can see, each of these characteristics of law I pointed out, I mentioned particular authority. I cited constitution in some, I cited cases in some, I cited example in some. These are ways you are going to answer it. It's not just enough to say dual nature, law should have two sides. You talk about how it works. Talk about the constitution that grants life and at the same time that can sanction you to death. Talk about the constitution that grants freedom of movement, but in cases of COVID-19, it can restrict you. You see, this is how you answer it. This is how you approach your lecturer question. However, we have made a lot of videos on this very channel. If you are interested in continuing with our lecture series, I encourage you to subscribe and click the notification button so that next Saturday you will receive a video. However, if you wish to know where we started, all the definitions of law, 5 erudite authority you are going to use to bamboozle your lecture, how to answer law problem questions, all these videos exist. Click the link above. All those videos is going to help you. And next Saturday, I'm going to see you in our next lecture video where we are going to continue with legal method once again. Thank you for watching this video. King's Advocate, love you so much.